Jayme, Jeff, thanks so much for being here. So we want to talk about enterprise AI adoption today. And this category is talked about endlessly, but not with the realities of what it actually takes for the enterprise. So I pulled this all together. We have public company CEO, probably getting bombarded by the board about every new AI widget or tool coming out, how you have to adopt it. We have Jeff as the most sought after professor at Harvard Business School, founder and GP at Flybridge, investing in these companies. We have Blitzy, one of these AI vendors, talking to enterprises each and every day about how they are seeing adoption across the enterprise. So there's no hiding in this conversation. But Jayme, I want to start with you because you're the center of the universe here, which is the public enterprise under immense pressure. So maybe you could just kind of paint the landscape on the experience that you have on AI adoption from the board, and then compare that to the reality of the field or the game on the field.
Sure. So, when ChatGPT hit the scene several years ago at this point, right, I think it became evident that there was some serious change coming.
Yeah.
And
you're in like year 2 at the CEO?
Yeah, I'm probably 3 years in as CEO.
Settled, you're feeling?
That's right. And I remember, and it was still, the office was fairly empty at the time because we were still kind of coming back from COVID. But I remember sitting in my office with our CTO trying to just diagnose, like, what does this mean for us? And from that point on, I would say there have been very few conversations, not only with the board, I would extend that to with investors. It comes up frequently with customers about how we are integrating AI into our business. It's like a ubiquitous topic of conversation. The challenge in those, early days was, I felt pretty strongly that we needed to, whenever we come out and start talking about it, whether that's with the board, with investors, with customers, it needs to be real. And so immediately where my mind went was to the use cases, right? So like, what are we actually going to do with this that will have a material impact on our business, on our customers? And it was not like immediately evident in our case. But over time, I think we've now developed a way to think about it. There's a category of use cases that are more efficiency oriented. So applying AI to make coding, more efficient, call center operations more efficient, replacing or augmenting employee work with AI agents who can do that work, faster, more effectively. And then category use case number 2 is customer facing applications and use cases. And that comes with a whole other set of considerations. So for us, we spent really the first year or 2 doing a lot of sort of testing and tinkering. And, I would say only recently in the last, 12 to 18 months do we feel like we've started to really be able to kind of wrap our arms around how we're going to start to incorporate this into the business. But it took a while to get there. And it's funny, when we were talking about having this conversation, I think my perspective was, if you sort of listen to the people out there talking about this stuff, there's capital allocators, there's sort of commentators or media personalities, and then you've got practitioners, but those practitioners tend to either be startup people who have the luxury of, in some ways, not having any incumbent infrastructure, data governance issues, customers to worry about. And then you've got the sort of other end of the spectrum, like the Mag 7s of the world, who are, kind of live in a category of their own. In the middle, which is, I think, where most of the enterprises are, you got us, and we're all trying to figure out. It's amazing because I talk to dozens of CEOs, CTOs. I'm sure you have too, local tech companies here in Boston. And every single person sort of oscillates between excitement and like fear.
Yeah.
Right? But we're all going through the same process of trying to figure out what is like real and actionable today relative to what everybody out there is talking about, how this is going to, transform everything that we do. So it's been interesting. I would say we are continually scanning for use cases where it seems like the technology can actually solve a problem that we have.
Yeah.
And, we do take our cues from what seems to be going on in the world. So there are, I think, some of these ubiquitous use cases, which the sort of prevailing conclusion at this point is like AI is good, right? It can help. Software development is a great example of that. You both know this well. But I would say that's where we got our first adoption, is just in coding. And it started with just adoption of GitHub, Copilot, and then, extended out from there to the point where now I think 90+% of our engineers are using AI to write code.
And your engineers are actually pretty advanced. I've been impressed getting to know some of them. You enter a larger organization, and adoption rates are only 25%. So I guess I've worked with some of your engineering managers, guys in Northern Ireland, for whatever reason, are the most on it, but they actually understand how it works and where it falls short.
Yeah.
Quick, that's actually hard to do. So kudos.
Yeah, thank you. So, that's an example of an internal sort of efficiency-oriented use case or an output-oriented use case. Even within there's a lot of nuance, which maybe we can get into. Call center operations is another one where it's sort of rote conversations happening over and over again, customer service type things, where the AI voice has now demonstrated its ability to perform sort of at or above the level of humans for certain tasks. And so you start to sort of phase that in. And as you're doing this, you're building competency with the technology. So we really began inwardly focused. And then more recently, it's felt like we have enough adoption throughout the organization that it felt like, okay, it's time to start thinking about how this now meets our customers. And the way that we actually prompted a lot of the ideation around that was to try and take some of the pressure off and make it fun. So we had effectively a ship it day, an AI themed ship it day. We call it Goat Tank. Goat is kind of our mascot. So, Shark Tank, Goat Tank, where teams would put forth ideas, and then they would develop prototypes, and we'd have a judging panel and the whole thing. And so we did that, and to our delight, we had, our company is not quite 400 people, we had 30 plus submissions, so different teams submitting ideas. We down selected, I think, about almost 10 of them, and we just had this event a week or two ago, and it was amazing to me how much the teams were able to do just organically, using some of the experience that they had gotten with the internal reps and now converting it into sort of customer-facing tools or features. So that's been a bit of our adoption pattern, but it's taken a while, right? It's taken some time.
What I love about Jayme's story is that it mirrors a lot of companies I talk to as well. And I think you're doing a fantastic job. You're one of the innovators in this space, in part because you're an innovative CEO, in part you're a smaller company, in part you're here in Boston, swirling around you are all sorts of AI and venture-backed companies. But if you sort of distill that playbook, it's a organizational change management exercise and a cultural change exercise. You started with coding because that's where the tooling is most mature, and that's where the organization is ready to adopt and seeing the rapid ROI. But then doing these top-down mandates, doing these hackathons, making it fun, a game, rewarding, sending that cultural signal that this is what we want to do. I think that's awesome. And then you can sort of see it seeping in throughout the rest of the organization. And I think you also have this experimentation mindset where you're encouraging your team, your leadership to run experiments. Just try some of these tools out, see how they work, and if they scale effectively, great. And if they don't, that's okay. There's no harm to failure. There's no harm to trying a tool, having it not work out and shutting it down. Like, no one's going to get penalized. No one's going to get fired for running an experiment.
That's right. The cultural piece is a big one. I remember when Toby, the Shopify CEO, sent that letter, right? And I think it's sort of the letter read around the AI world. And around the same time, I had been and this is now, I don't remember how long ago it was, like maybe 18 months ago.
Yeah, I was going to say 15, 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And I think the title was AI is no longer optional.
Right.
and here are the things we're going to do to be an AI native company.
For hiring, you have to try to solve it with AI, and then and only then you can hire, but you better ask me first. Like, yeah, some pointed language.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right, and that certainly sets the tone, right? It's funny because I had a not quite as eloquent as Toby's email, but a sort of analogous email drafted and sitting in my draft folder for 6 months before that. And then Toby's email went out and I was like, is now the time for me to send mine? And I decided not to. I mean, I waited another probably year before I sent mine. I think the timing really matters relative to where the organization is.
Yeah.
I spoke with someone at another local public company, and he said that their CEO came out and basically pounded the table like too early.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the year of AI. We're going to build some AI features. We're going to ship some AI features. And so this person was in their product organization. He's like, we built AI features. Nobody used them. And then we really lost a lot of momentum in that process. So I think the approach to the cultural evolution is really important. I'm sure like Shopify was ready. Like when Toby said that, right, they were ready to actually take that sort of mandate and carry it forward. But I think you as leadership in an operating context need to make sure that once you throw the gauntlet, like you're there to support the team and actually carrying it through.
And I wonder, have you carried that through in systems and reviews? So for example, when you hire, are you screening for AI native skills, and how do you do that? And when you do reviews, are you incorporating AI native proficiency, and in what way?
For recruiting in certain roles, yes, not across all roles. In reviews, not yet. I think when we refactor our review process the next time, we will begin to do that. But the mandate to our team was we want to become an AI first company, right? So that will mean very different things to very different functions. And we're in the process now of literally going through function by function and determining, okay, with the state of the technology today, what are the things that we can build or buy that map to a set of activities that you do today that can materially just make your life easier or make you more productive? And the answer, the set of tools, is very different, obviously, depending on the function. But this is kind of the journey, right? And I do think that if you ask me that question a year from now, the answer will probably be yes to both.
I would argue like maybe it should be no, because like AI is an input in service of what, right? And so it's, have you found ways to leverage technology to dramatically increase the jobs to be done in your role, right? And that's shipping velocity, that's serving customer service tickets, right? And AI is a huge part of that. But I think overemphasizing the like input of, oh, if I need to adopt AI into my everyday workflow, I will use ChatGPT every day, therefore I'm AI native, versus like, what are you doing here? And let's make sure that that output is as robust as possible, and we're going to enable you to do this.
I don't know, I would argue that if you don't focus on the inputs now, you'll miss the outputs. And if you don't push your team to invest in learning the tools, doing the change management, the process work, hard work required, then you may miss some windows. And review processes and promotion processes and hiring processes, those are fundamental to how people are incented. And if you don't get into the fundamentals, then the CEO makes bold statements and sends bold emails, but it doesn't really permeate the organization in the way you need it and want it to.
That's right. Yeah, it's a hard question. I think I've seen it approached two ways. I think this is a very like viable approach, by the way, and it's probably reliable. But the change of the expectation to like, this is our baseline of where we're at. This is what the new baseline of expectation is going to be. Here's the tooling to enable that. And the expectation is that you hit X, right? And therefore you are not facing any organ rejection of like, they are telling me I must use it.
I think that's super important. And you made the comment about the company that pushed AI for the sake of AI, and then there's this backlash. How do you deal with the inherent tension and friction of, okay, Jayme, that sounds great, but we're a public company. We have a roadmap. We have numbers we're trying to hit. We've given guidance to the street. Do you want me to step away from that? set of priorities, or how am I supposed to make this trade-off?
It's the hardest thing, right? And that's why it took 2 years from when I first drafted the email to when I pressed send, because every time I'd get in a room with people who are closer to the work, and I'm like, we need to be adopting this AI tool or this AI feature for this reason, they'll explain to me the trade-offs and why they're not doing that yet, and I'll generally agree. You know what I mean? So for me, it was always it's always been just waiting for the use case and like the timing to align. Where you're not adopting AI for adopting AI's sake. You're adopting AI because it has now met a point on your on your roadmap
At a usefulness
where
level.
it's going to accelerate something that you want to do for the business, for the customer, not for cosmetics.
And ease of use, right? It's the other piece where if you look at the ability to get the correct value out of AI, late 22, early 23, like the end user had to be exceptionally talented, and you had a lot of R&D to how to surface that. Whereas the application layer has gotten so robust now that somebody can come in and say, this is my role, this is my job, I want to harness this technology that's been built for my role and get a lot of value.
What percent efficiency improvement to this point do you think you've achieved in the software development organization? Because that's the most mature area. That's the area that everybody's embracing.
Yeah, I would say 30 to 40%, but it depends on the type of work being done. So where we have found sort of the AI coding to be the highest leverage is on net new builds or replatforming, of something. So that's probably where you get that just the highest leverage, right? Where it's not like 30% incrementality, it's multiples greater efficiency. I would say when you're talking about incremental features into existing, code bases, that's where it's a bit more incremental, and you have engineers who are typically toggling between sort of multiple tools, and they all have their own approach to it, right? But even there, I think just based on the adoption, we're picking up meaningful efficiency.
And I would guess you can't say the same about any other function or any other process where it's so obvious and tangible a benefit. And I think that's the change we're going to see in the next year or two as the agentic AI infrastructure matures, as those applications and those tools get easier to use. But for now, it's harder for you to measure that.
That's right. I would say the only other place where you can at least measure it as cleanly is in the call center operations, where you've got an AI voice agent and you've got a human agent, and they're doing an analogous task, and you can measure the difference between the two.
These like major replatforming use cases, we had this executive briefing, right? We had the CIO, us, and briefing all the other executives. And they're like, hey, we got 3.5x in this platform in proof of concept. We have 35 more across the organization. Like, this is dramatic. We do this. Somebody pulls up a Gartner report, and they said, full AI coding adoption, you can get 35%. That's as good as you can get. So if you're getting 350%, we don't believe you. And it's like, well, that Gartner report was written 12 months ago. And so that's the difference between 12 months ago and now. And the research was done 12 months before that. So the cycle of improvement has been absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah. And so how do you keep up with the next wave of tools, the next wave, to Brian's earlier point of evaluating what tools? I have a portfolio full of Flybridge-backed startups that are chasing after these things. And, it's the classic thing of don't die in the pilot ghetto. Like, how do you not only break into the pilot phase, but also break out of pilots into enterprise-wide deployment?
Yeah, I would say at this stage, things make their way into pilot organically. So there's teams
Bottoms up,
right? And again, engineering is probably the most active, and you see it in Slack. They're constantly testing, new tools, new models, and they're exchanging information about it. But even in other functions, you have teams saying, hey, I want to use this tool for marketing creative or for actually legal reviews. That's that's a place we've gotten some good adoption. And so they'll sort of source the tool. We'll typically try and make it pretty low friction to run a pilot.
Did you change your policy on that front?
I mean, yeah, like this has been probably one of the most painful parts of this process. We're not a company that has like a lot of committees. We needed like an AI governance committee because you're sharing data. You know, there's IT security and data security like considerations here. So we put a lot more time than I would care to share into trying to figure out how we make that pipeline into pilot at least easier,
yeah.
And so we've tried to standardize that upfront process as much as possible and make it easy for someone to get to a yes as long as they're checking certain boxes. And we have budget available for these things too. So we try to make it easy to get adoption. And then once something's adopted, we'll if the value is there as determined by the using party, and typically with some sort of some corroboration by someone else in the company, whether it's in finance or depending on the use case, then we'll try and flip it to a permanent solution for us. And that may or may not require more detailed like diligence and governance work at that time.
That buying motion up front is what I'd see differentiate, I would say, like enterprises that are great at adopting AI, enterprises that want to adopt AI so badly but can't get it in the door. Is what is the first 45 days look like from I'm really interested in this tool and I believe it can help me to getting it potentially inside of the group.
Yeah.
We've seen that as quick as like talking organizations like EverQuote size or 10x, like as quickly as 20 days from I want to do this to inside the org using our data to 9 months.
And you both know this, but in the world of the startup land, the startup ecosystem, we talk a lot internally about product-led growth motion versus sales-led growth motion. And you hope in a PLG or product-led growth motion, you're going to see that bottom-up adoption with very little friction.
Right.
But that's also easy come, easy go. Yeah. And in the sales-led growth motion, it takes a greater investment to educate a committee and go through that process. But ideally, you're set up for success to scale once you hit those milestones.
Right. And I think it's very dependent on, for us, the sort of threshold criteria is, are we sharing data with EverQuote data with the LLM or with the tool?
Yeah.
So for something like a tool that's going to generate marketing creative, there's that sort of category tool lends itself really nicely to more like product-led growth, because like no one really needs to talk to anyone about that. There's the risk profile is very different. But if you're going to be working with our code base or any of our sort of our IP, then it's the sales-led growth approach is, I would say, almost required for most companies that have any type of serious
size scaling.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
What have you seen, Jeff? Would you agree?
I do agree. I think that I love this language you're using, Jayme, about change management, ROI, efficiency, capabilities, expansion. I think a lot of tech-oriented founders don't know how to speak the language of their customers, and AI startups need to think about what the public company CEO at the end of the line is actually measured by and is thinking about as part of this work. Because if they don't fit their messaging and their sales motion to meet the needs of the public company CEO, they're going to miss the boat. And so I think it's a great lesson for the founders out there to really understand what their audience needs to hear. It's not just their end user audience, the individual engineer or the individual customer service manager, but what the senior executives, what sort of pressure is around them, how they think about policies and system-wide change.
Right.
How do you think about value realization? Go through this pilot, right? There's some plan about, let's say, productivity uplift or so some change to the business that should ultimately flow down to the P&L at some point. Do you guys look at that AI decision and then 9 months later, are you sitting there, under that 4 did we move the needle? Is it that level of granularity?
Yes, though I don't know that the linkage is as direct as you might sort of think. We, our financial model is we want to be a sort of profitable grower. So we're trying to grow 20+% a year, and we're trying to expand our adjusted EBITDA margin, 1 to 2 points per year, roughly. So every year, as part of our sort of planning, we have both, growth goals, and then we have efficiency goals. We're trying to drive more greater productivity in the business as we grow. So AI efficiency is, going into 2026, going to be one of the key categories, one of the key ways that we're going to drive, that we plan to drive that efficiency. It's through the adoption. Now you can start to map that to very specific, very specific use cases, like it's category 1, 2, and 3. That's where we think we'll get most of the AI-led efficiency gain.
Yeah.
And then, there's sort of sub KPIs under that to see, are we tracking? We don't try to sort of tick and tie every little thing.
Big investments.
But yes, there is a connection between a top-level company goal, AI as adoption as a category that is specifically intended to drive operating efficiency, and then a series of initiatives down below it that we think will account for the bulk of that AI-led efficiency gain.
It's a lot different from buying SaaS back in the day, where we need this. This is roughly going to equate to better workflow and usage, but you weren't driving dramatic P&L. You had some amount of acceptable software spend per employee, and as you grew, you kind of had SaaS in there, and that was it. But the dollar allocation into these AI platforms is so much higher that the actual diligence financially is for the big investment. You see people that are investing in something like us, like they are looking 9, 12, 15 months down the line and tracking. We made these hiring differences, right? We made these, we let people that naturally get traded and we never back.
Well, I think part of it is the potential is there. When you hear a Gartner say 35% efficiency, and when you say our customers are experiencing 350%, when CEOs get together, one of the first things they ask is, how much leverage are you seeing from your AI investment? What efficiency levels are you achieving? And is it bending the curve on growth and profitability, the two things you just articulated you're setting out in your multi-year model? And so the potential is there, and the rewards for hitting that are so high in the markets today that the leaders who can demonstrate that are going to be rewarded. They're already being rewarded.
Totally.
You can see it in the public stock movements. And those who don't demonstrate it are going to be penalized. So it's sort of opportunity and threat. And so the urgency to move and the urgency to get it right, because the rewards are so high, is much higher than it was in, say, SaaS land.
Yeah. And we're really into 26, 27 starts to feel like the point where the longer you go, the more penalization there's going to be. There's just you've, I think, felt the normal early adopter pathway, which is what is going on in this space. Like, this stuff is going to be helpful. Okay, I'm adopting this stuff is helpful. But if you wait 24 months, you've sort of missed the curve. Yeah. So we have folks coming in for the first time, and they are concerned, and we are like, help us. It's a very different than what you're used to hearing.
Yeah, part of the language I like to use is that the whole crossing the chasm metaphor is getting compressed, because nobody wants to be a laggard. The penalty for being a laggard is so high. It used to be, if you're a late adopter, if you're a laggard, that's a reasonable strategy to let be a fast follower maybe, or second or third wave, because there's the bleeding edge and then there's the cutting edge, and then you want to show up when everything's figured out and smoothed out. That doesn't cut it anymore. You've got to be in the experimentation swirl and dealing with the bumpiness that's involved in that.
I agree. I think you need to have your thumb on the scale.
Yeah.
And because if you fall too far behind, I think it starts to feel overwhelming to wade into it.
Yeah.
SaaS was different, right? SaaS is like, it's a UI that everyone can kind of like wrap their heads around. You just log into Salesforce and it's like, okay, I understand how this works, right? Anybody can kind of engage with it. And sure, this is the case for some AI tools, but I think it's, AI is such like a vast landscape, and there's so many different ways to engage with it that I feel like if you're not building some amount of organizational comfort with it, that it becomes, I think it gets to a point where it seems too daunting for the team to start to engage.
And we heard a lot of this, I think a year ago, we had people that were like, we're going to buy you guys. So literally because our organization needs to learn how to use this muscle, right? And we know that this is the future. We know that you can deliver, let's say, even half of what you're doing today. Like, we accept that you guys are early, and we're going to teach our customers, our end users, how to deliver this product. And they've been rewarded handsomely for being an early adopter, and so it's worked out well for them. But just the mentality of like, I could have potentially not been as robust of a technology, and they were just making a bet that they had to learn internally how to change the way they work.
Well, I think part of what you're also pointing to is a dynamic that didn't occur in SaaS, which is the platforms underneath Blitzy and other applications. The rate of pace of change is just extraordinary, and they just keep getting more and more and more capable. Today, if you crack open Gemini 3, the capabilities are extraordinary. And if you weren't already doing the hard work to get onto an application that leverage these underlying models, you don't benefit from those stepwise improvements. And now you're really behind. So I think there's another dynamic here, which is that the underlying platforms just keep getting more and more and more capable, and the smartly constructed and architected apps like Blitzy that benefit from those increasing capabilities, you're delivering more value today than you did a week ago, not because you did so many amazing things, but because the platform...
Because I just had $1 billion in R&D last week, basically.
You just got $1 billion of free R&D last week.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
and your customers are benefiting from it. And otherwise, you wouldn't know how to access those capabilities.
Right.
It would just feel like a chatbot that gave you better answers on the margin,
Right.
Not really driving real improvement.
Yeah.
Jack, what's the academic perspective here? This is call it the down on the ground, what's actually happening, and you can speak from the alligator perspective, but take your other hat for a second. What is the academic understanding of the adoption rate here?
Organizational behavior change management is really hard. Humans are not software. Humans are bags of biology, and we have a narrative and a social construct and a set of relationships, and we have habits. And these new AI tools are changing so rapidly, it's really challenging individuals and organizational structures like never before. And so it takes great leaders to push and pull, know the timing. I love your comment of you didn't want to send the email too soon. That's a nuance of when's my organization ready? I want to meet them where they are. I want to push them at times, and then I want to give them space, and then I want to push them, and then I want to give them space. And they convince me to back off, and then I convince them that they need to do it even though they want me to back off. And just that nuance of leadership and organizational change, I think, is what we're seeing in the field is really hard. And it requires leaders that are willing to listen very carefully to what their organization needs at the moment they need it, but also have their ear out to what's happening in the market, and to know how to learn from peers and capture the best practices to drive that organizational change. But we know that organizational change lags adoption. It's always the big friction point.
Yeah.
The technology is moving so fast and is about to get self-improving, software building software, AI building AI. Like, we're hitting this knee of the curve, but humans can't adopt at these increasing paces. So we're still going to see that friction out there.
So maybe the highest premium right now is these fantastic leaders of organizational management, because it's not the next incremental maybe AI researcher that'll ever move the needle for, call it the middle enterprises, everyone that's not Mag 7, but it's the ability to bring these in effectively and keep the pulse on the enterprise.
I think it puts a premium on leadership who can turn a ship of 400 people or 4,000 people. And it also says we're going to see disruption from new entrants like never before. The old saying of the Fortune 50 today wasn't the Fortune 50 20, 30 years ago. There's a lot of dynamism in those lists. I think we're going to continue to see that dynamism. I think we're going to see that the existing franchises are very vulnerable. And some of those existing franchises are going to nail it from a leadership and change management standpoint and culture standpoint. And some of them are going to whiff. And those that whiff are going to be disrupted dramatically.
So what's AI look like for you all in 2030, let's call it?
In 2030, wow.
2026 feels like we're not referring to the street here. That's how you short term, but I'll give you the space.
So I think, again, I sort of think it in two categories. There's what does it mean for our operations internally, And then what does it mean for our products and features and customers? Internally, I would like to say we have the same number of employees as we do today.
Yeah.
And they are 5 to 10x more productive.
Yeah.
And we will have gotten broad-based adoption of AI wherever it is relevant,
yeah,
and can perform a task as well or better than a human. So I do think, we have a sort of an approach to growing that almost requires us to sort of think about headcount in a very disciplined way. But I think if we're successful on this AI journey, that probably manifests as relatively flat to declining headcount over time, depending on the scope of the business, I suppose. Then I think about the customer, and we haven't talked much about EverQuote in this conversation yet, right? But we are in the business of helping insurance carriers and agents grow profitably. And so I would like to think that we have a suite of products and services that are kind of leveraging AI wherever possible to help customers do that more effectively. And I would say my vision of success would be those carriers and agents who have chosen EverQuote as their primary growth partner have created significant separation from all the other carriers and agents out there in terms of their ability to grow profitably.
That's amazing. That's the fact that you were able to say, I think without any controversy, that we're going to be 5 to 10x better with the exact same amount of people. And like people watching this won't even click an eye. Oh yeah, that's certainly where things are headed over the next couple of years. It's pretty spectacular.
When I wrote this in my book, The Experimentation Machine, when I said we're going to see the rise of the 10x leader, the 10x founder, the 10x professional, people thought, like, that sounds insane. And now, as you say, that sounds really commonplace. And to make that happen, you need an army of dozens of agents working for each individual. And I think the provocative question in 2030 is, what does a 100x leader and a 100x professional look like?
Yeah.
And I would submit that it's going to be less task-oriented. We're going to totally nail all that, and sort of process component-oriented and more strategic-oriented, meaning you'll be able to say things to your team and to the agents, such as, build me the next new product, conceive of what our new business line should look like, conceive of and execute on a new globalization strategy, and you'll see it not only plan, but execute all of that. So in much the same way that Blitzy has this incredible chain of thought, planning, and execution in the world of software coding, where the rules are very well defined, I think you're going to start seeing some of that planning and execution in more conceptual spaces.
Please.
We'll see. I have not yet, and now we're talking about 2030, not 2026, right? I have not yet found the AI to provide as much leverage as I would like to me in my job, particularly on the more sort of ambiguous and strategic topics.
Yeah.
I have found it to be a little bit painful in terms of trying to get the prompt right and the response not quite catching the nuance that it needs to catch. And so I think there's a category, and it'll be really interesting, right? Because I think that these are two very different worlds that we could be living in 5 years. But I remain a healthy skeptic that it will be able to do a lot of this sort of nuanced kind of like human leadership and strategic work that a lot of us have to do today.
I will take that bet. By 2030, we'll be sitting around this couch or the equivalent couch at some beautiful office building this Woodsy has somewhere in downtown.
I hope you're right, because I get a lot more time to chill, but
Do the next one 2030, guys.
Sounds good.
Thanks so much.
Pleasure.
all right, yeah, it's great.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, great.